Okay, so yay, thank you for joining us, guest speakers and students, for our career panel. I really appreciate it. Today we have with us 3 different people from 3 different backgrounds that will hopefully be giving you some information on things that you can do with, I would say, degrees that a lot of people seek after, like MD degrees and master's degrees and PhD degrees. And so we have with us John Chapman, who is here. I'm going to let each of them tell you more about themselves, but just super quickly, John Chapman is, he holds a PhD and he is a patent attorney. Gloria is a technical program manager at Cala Health, and she has a master's degree. And Alok Patel has his MD degree, and he does a lot of things, but he's currently over at Stanford doing a lot of different things. So I think we'll go in that order. And so speakers, if you could take maybe just 5 to 10 minutes just to describe what it is that you do and how did you get involved in that, I would really appreciate that. So we'll go in alphabetical order by last name. So John, if you don't mind, I will have you go first.
Sure, happy to kick things off. And thanks for having me back. I don't know if you can see it, but I threw on my U of A gear just for today. And that's, I didn't realize, look, we're neighbors. I'm at a firm called Mofo. Long is Morrison and Foerster, but we go by Mofo, so we're all a bunch of Mofos. But we work in patent law, and there's a lot of different facets. And I'll link it back to what I think you all are doing right now. But there's a lot of different facets of what we do to help our clients. So clients will come to us for a variety of needs. A lot of them are, and the clients are very diverse too. So I've had husband and wives working out of their garage all the way to like massive biotech companies like Genentech or Roche. But they're coming to us to get help to patent their inventions, to see if what their company is doing is at risk of, maybe somebody will file a lawsuit against them saying, I have a patent, you can't do that. So lots of diversity in what we do day to day, but I think where it all comes back is to exactly what you're doing now is science. Like, we're really all scientists at the end of the day. We just apply it in a slightly different way. So my route to where I am now is, after going to U of A and bearing down, I went to University of Washington for my PhD. I got a job straight out of graduating from there at Morrison and Foerster as what's called a patent agent. So there's a couple different levels, and I'm happy to jump into it more later, but you can practice as a patent agent and you're representing clients in front of the patent office in the US. And then the degree after that is becoming a patent attorney, which I am now, and you have to go to law school, pass the bar, and then hopefully never go to school again in your life, because that was a long time. But that's where I am now, and I'll pass on the baton here. I think who's next?
I think I'm up next.
Gloria, you're up next.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for sharing your story, John. I work just down the street from you, so that's where our main offices were located, in San Mateo, and there's many of our team comes from Stanford. So and I believe our lead CTO is her product is the one that we're developing right now, and she started a lab in Stanford. So just a little fun fact there. So I graduated in 2017, and I actually joined Roche as a systems engineer. Life just kind of took me on a very interesting path. So I did systems engineering for quite some time. It was really fun just being in the presence of a lot of really amazing minds. So I worked with chemistry PhDs, physics PhDs, you name it, I worked with them, doing a lot of systems optimization for the software, clinical, and the mechanical itself. So did that. Then I went back to school for my master's in cell molecular medicine. As part of that process, I just found myself moving more and more out of the engineering and the scientist space, so to speak, and more into the management role, just because of my background. After doing that for a while, I got recruited to join a startup. So did both the big company, taking that experience and moving it into a small company. And now I manage an IT team in the business management space. So it really just goes to show that all of these skills that we develop over time really doesn't matter. You do to John's point, just apply the same logic throughout whatever space that you're in. So now I do a lot more business management things like Salesforce implementation, NetSuite implementation, and those are just systems that optimize the way that you run a company. So yeah, and then just a little bit about Cala Health, like really at the end of the day, we're really trying to give patients an opportunity to try out this new therapy. It's a wearable device, kind of like a Fitbit, that delivers electrical impulses through your wrist to help patients with essential tremor or Parkinson's disease help manage their day-to-day symptoms. So you do a like 30-minute session with stimulation, and then you can move your hands shaking from like here to pretty still. So that's really what we're trying to do, is get that device into patients' hands as quickly as possible.
Great, thank you. And then Alok, how about you?
I want you all to know that I was running late, but I had every intention of going to one of my storage units and getting my chain gang rugby from 2005, 2006, just so that that's in spirit. Also, I love that Gloria, John, and I are all Bay Area Bay Cats. So my name's Alok Patel. I cannot believe it's been literally 20 years, 2003, since I called Roxy Katz, who used to work with Jennifer. And I was like the typical annoying lost pre-med kid who was like, I need to take every honors class and I need to volunteer everywhere. And I need to work in a hospice. And I need to paint a hospital. And there was a completely wrong approach. So throughout my time at U of A, I was an MCB major and I felt lost in terms of going on the typical pre-med path. And that was before the entire tech industry even showed up. Like if you got an MCB degree, you were going to research or one of the applied health fields. And so I spent 4 years at U of A, totally loving my time there. And a few key people in the MCB department encouraged me to like chill out. They're like, listen, learn the science, learn what you can from your mentors, and don't get lost trying to constantly hit these check boxes of applying to medical school because you're missing the point. And like that literally, I'm not even saying this because we're on this panel. I'm not saying this because Jennifer Cubett is here. It forged my entire life. Like in terms of some of the lessons I learned from people there, I tried not to go into medicine. So I applied for an internship with the CIA to look at forensic science. I looked at going into other forms of research. I went and talked to someone in the biomedical engineering. At the time, we didn't have a department there. I looked at things in industry, but again, it didn't really work out. And I circled back into medicine, wanting to do that, but I had a better story and a better resolve after really listening to people. And I went to medical school at U of A. I promised myself I would leave Tucson, but then I like interviewed all over the country and I was like, I don't want to spend an extra $200,000. So I went to U of A for medical school, loved it. Then just like John, I went to Seattle and I went to residency in pediatrics. When I was in residency, that's when I really thought about what I wanted to do. And at the time, so this is like 2013, tech was slowly starting to make a footnote in digital health, which is kind of the space that Gloria was describing. And science communication was becoming this bigger, was getting a bigger need. And I did an internship at ABC News in 2014. On the very last day, Diane Sawyer pulled me into her office. I'm not name dropping, it was wild. And she was like, you're a maniac, I want to hear your story. And after we talked, I changed everything I was doing. I moved to New York, and I'm going to fast forward a bunch, but while working at Columbia in pediatrics, I started to work at ABC News and I was producing for CNN. And now I am full-time with ABC News as a medical contributor. And I work with PBS and host a few shows, and I do some freelance work, and I work basically in the entertainment and journalism industry. And then I still practice almost full-time between Stanford and UCSF. The point of telling you all that is I can actually pinpoint different life lessons I learned that I'll go back to my 4 years at U of A and just like having an open mind. And I'm sorry if someone here is going to get offended by my next comment, but like the best thing I did was I listened to the MCB department and not the pre-med fraternity. I like quit that thing. I was like, listen, I'm going to go be an independent individual. So with that being said, I echo what my previous two co-panelists said, in keeping an open mind and not stressing about 10 years from now, just doing what you can right now.
Thanks for that, Alok. I appreciate that. I can say, at least in my advising days, there were many students that I found who obviously wanted to figure out what they want to do, when they graduated. But I think the way that you put it was very interesting, because I think people sometimes go about it the wrong way, in the sense of, they have an idea of what something's going to be and how they're going to be just like that. And so they try to do all the things in order to be that. But I think it's so important, if you want to be kind of happy and content with what you do, to reflect a lot on what you're doing and why you're doing it, and what you want to get out of it, and not necessarily always to have the end goal in mind. I think having the next step in mind is always a good thing. But if you tell yourself, like, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to try to do everything to get to that one spot, then sometimes I think you sort of miss the trees in the forest, as you go. And so I think it's really interesting how all of you have sort of touched on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Go
just
ahead,
that
Gloria.
I know that John and Alok, you guys are very far along on your careers compared to where I am. And I think that, like, one of the things that I have taken away through this journey as I interview and continuously interview for new positions is, like, what are the skills that I'm trying to learn? And is the culture there to support what I'm trying to accomplish? And it doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, I really want to be like the lead scientist on this development project. It's more of like these soft skills, like, how do I talk to people? How do I convince them that this way is better, or be a better listener, and things like that. So I always wanted to go in with this, like, really aggressive career goal. And I've noticed, like, as I've gone through my career itself, that those goals are now shifting into performing more like work-life balance areas, just developing better relationships, because since medtech, as we can all clearly see, is such a small space, it's really important to be allies with all the people that you will encounter undoubtedly at conferences or just random meetups and such.
And John, you were going to add, I think?
Yeah, I was just going to add one thing in that just, like, what everybody's saying just resonates so much with what the reality of life is. And just be open to letting something tell you it is not what you want to do. Like I said, the core is science, and I love science and wanted to head in that direction. And patent law seems far removed from it, but I'm actually, like, I do more science than I've ever done, and I'm a better scientist than I ever thought I would be. But I only got here because my first year in a 6-year PhD program, I realized I do not want to be here. and I kind of, you open up your eyes and you figure out the reasons why you don't want to be there. And I found a much better fit. So, like, yeah, let the path kind of guide you where where you want to go. And I still completed the PhD for 5 more years, but it was to serve a purpose, and a necessary purpose. But yeah, be open on your journey.
That's so real.
Yeah.
Great. So we will start with that. I think that is a very great introduction from all of you. Students, if you came in late too, I'm asking people if they don't mind to turn on their cameras, just because it's easier for people to talk if we can see you. If you don't mind, if you do, or whatever is going on in the background, then that's fine, you can keep it off. But if you are willing to turn on your camera, that would be lovely. And as I mentioned to all of you students, I wanted to make this a very heavily based Q&A session, because we have people here who I think would love to hear from current U of A students and what's going on here and what's on your mind. So I think the way that we'll do it is, if you can raise your Zoom hand, if you go to reactions at the bottom and then just raise your hand, then we will go through that way. And hopefully it'll be easier for me to find you too if you have questions. So I encourage you all to ask questions of any of our panelists, or all of them, depending on what you think. So feel free.
No question is off limits. I'm just going to say that you guys can ask us whatever you want. I will tell you what grades I got. I will tell you the trouble we got in. You can, like, I wish that they had panels like this 20 years ago for people who were just going to be relatable.
I was thinking the same thing.
This is why we do it, by the way, now, because I think it's much nicer to hear from, like, real people in real life doing real things. I mean, I feel like I can say stuff about students, but I would rather bring in former students that can talk about what they're really doing now. So for my students, I don't want you to be shy. Please ask a question. All right, Ariel, you have your hand raised.
Hi. Sorry, I can't have my camera on right now, but I'm actually really interested in how you guys learned about different industry jobs. I feel like with the career path I'm taking, and obviously I'm interested in going to graduate school, I feel like I'm told that academic path is the only path in a way, and I just feel like I'm very closed off from what it means to be in the industry. So I wonder if you guys have any thoughts on that.
I can take that one because I think this one was a really huge surprise to me. So when I was undergrad, I was like same thing as Alok, probably same as John, PhD, MD, like that was the only thing. And then I was in a really successful lab for 3 years, did really well. It was really amazing. Unfortunately, they moved during my junior year, so I was struggling to find like a capstone project. And then I had that same come to Jesus moment that John had, where I was like, I was in a different lab. I was struggling. It was really tough, especially with senior year, and you have all these different deadlines. So during that time, like working in lab till like 3 a.m. sort of thing, I was like, there's absolutely no way that I can sustain this and be happy. So I knew that Roche was a company in the area. I knew that if I took a gap here, same reasons as Alok, like Tucson's amazing, it's my home. There was no real reason to like leave at that point. So I did what a lot of people are probably doing now, which is applying like a madman to literally every job that I could like think of. I had to apply to internships. I applied to everything. Leveraging your network is, I learned, one of the most important things you could ever learn to do. So definitely took that route, tried to get like any interview possible into Roche. And then I just happened upon chance to interview for this position, really spoke well to my resume, was able to speak to each of the points that existed there. And I just happened upon systems engineering, which gave you like a little bit of everything. And then from there, it's really, the onus is on you as the person to go out and seek opportunities to further your education in maybe a non-traditional way. So go and talk to people, get into like, I got into a lot of trouble because I would just like kind of show up and ask a lot of questions. But that's kind of part of the charm of the process. So it's right in your backyard is kind of my point. There's not a ton of opportunity in Tucson, but that exists. I know that there's another company and there's like 3 or 4 biotech companies in Tucson itself. Look for internships. Every biotech company typically offers internships if you're very interested in doing a summer of that. It pays fairly competitively, I would say, as well. And then you can also make connections that way. And a lot of people that we get as interns end up becoming and returning as full-time employees. There are a lot of perks to that. You can continue your education at a much lower cost. Like typically companies will, if they're established companies, will cover that cost. So my master's was paid for. And then some people are very ambitious and will continue and do their PhD at the same time as working full time. So, but in that, it's also nice because you're surrounded by colleagues that have already gone through that process and you have a much stronger base of support and a lot of different opinions around you that you can leverage as part of that process.
And I'll add one thing in, because everything Gloria said is spot on in terms of the onus being on you. I ran into this realization that scientists and physicians and dentists, and we're all conditioned to seeing a goal and having steps to get there. You go through this much schooling, you take this test, and you do that. But that's not how the real world always works in terms of other non-traditional jobs, which are great, including the entire tech industry. So as I was rising the ranks in the television journalism industry, the people I was inspired by were actors and comedians who literally have a job to fund their passion and then they hustle. So these are the individuals who are cold emailing companies. They're on Twitter, they're on LinkedIn, and they're scouring and making connections with things that they want to do. And they're saying yes more than they're saying no to at least get their foot in the door. So I think that type of grit and that type of like, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to email and I'm going to message, I'm going to do whatever I can to get my footing there, is a great mentality to have. And you can start that now. I've run into undergrads throughout both the tech and in the journalism industry who have done incredible work because they shot their shot.
And it doesn't even have to be in a professional setting, I would say. Like I've met plenty of people just like in passing at random events, like just being open to like what Alok was saying, a new experience, wherever that may be, may take you on the path that you're looking for. Who knows?
Yeah, and I think underlying what Alok was saying was exactly what helped me, and that's persistence. Like what I did was I kind of boiled down what I liked, what I wanted to do, what my interests were. And I was like, okay, boil it down into skills, looked at what other things I could do, and patent law just aligned with what my interests were in skills, and then you just reach out to people and try to do informational interviews. And I had a lot of success with just playing the dummy. It's like, you know what, I'm interested in this. I have no idea. Can I talk to you for like 15, 30 minutes to see what you do? And you'll find the right people. You'll kind of throw a lot of emails right into the ocean, so to speak, and never hear back. But you take a couple leads, and then the most important thing I would stress is at the end of the call, say, thank you. Is there anybody else like you would recommend me talking to, and can you connect me? Because you only make one connection, and then you can form a chain or a web. And that I think was what really helped me, because I didn't know anybody who was a lawyer or in patent law, so I was starting from scratch. But yeah, persistence.
And now you guys have like 3 new connections. So
Yeah.
I mean, I think that that's fair to start leveraging even outside of this interview. Like I'm pretty sure we're all on LinkedIn, so you can definitely find us there.
Yeah.
Along those lines, I wanted to ask the 3 of you, is it okay that I share your email addresses with this group of students if they want to contact you individually about stuff?
Yeah, for me that's great. It's linked to my LinkedIn anyway, so
Okay.
you can't find it here, that it's on my LinkedIn.
Okay, or you can feel free to send me any kind of, whatever contact or best way to get a hold of you that you would like.
You guys are all welcome to slide into my DMs on Instagram,
Oh,
Twitter, or whatever platform you want. We're here for you.
wonderful.
Yeah. And I think that's the nice thing about like scientists, we get a lot of payment early on, in the sense that people help us and guide us, and then we all appreciate it. And, people are willing to pay it back. You just have to ask for it sometimes.
To a 30-second note before I forget, before we move on to something else. On that note, what John just mentioned, I would highly recommend everyone at least secure your Twitter or Thread handle or Instagram handle if you don't have one. Get that account that's for you, and follow people in the industry who you're interested in learning from, because you never know where you're going to run into a tweet or a thread, or someone's going to retweet your work or share what you're doing, and it starts from there. It is wild how many incredible opportunities are spurred from social media. It's crazy. I can give you examples for days.
That's so funny that you mentioned that, because I think one of my advisors gave me a thesis project based on a Twitter post. That is how I got my one project that I had. So it was wild. I was so shocked. I was I didn't know that you could use these platforms or anything else besides casual social media. That was really cool. Little connection. Then I was like, okay, I probably should do this too.
All right, I am curious if we have students that have other questions, because certainly there must be some.
We'll keep rambling if you don't ask them.
Yeah.
If you want
Got
to
an
direct the
excited crew.
conversation, you should ask a question.
Yeah. Are you curious about startup versus corporate, or what I don't know anything about patent law, which have a million questions about.
I'm going to give it a 10-second window for questions. Jesus, thank you.
I was 3 times incorrectly. I just wanted to ask, I'm right now set to go to industry, but I've always considered going to grad school. Do you think it's important to go to grad school first, or would I be able to get industry experience first and then possibly go back to grad school, maybe further my education, something more specific catered to what I'm doing at my industry job?
I have a strong opinion on that.
Take it
I'm
away.
gonna share, but take it with a grain of salt. But I think you should go in industry, because I feel at least when I was going through that process, I was surrounded by a lot of people who had their PhDs and were able to give me a lot of advice. Why do you want to go to grad school? What is the purpose? What do you really want to study? What do you want to learn? If you already know the answers to those questions, by all means, go into grad school. But the benefit of going in industry is you could also get it paid for by the company that you work for. Granted, it is working 2 jobs at once, so you just have to keep that as a grain of salt. But maybe if you are just questioning whether or not you want to go, it might be a good idea just to take a gap year, just to figure out what that is. Because I don't know, when I was in that mindset, I was just so confused. I didn't know why I wanted to get this master's, what the end goal was there, what do I want to learn? And then through that process, I still was okay, I'm going to get this master's. But has that really changed my career path at all? I don't think so. That hasn't really done much for me in that particular space, but I'm really glad I learned that information because it's something that I was really passionate about.
I was going to say, know
Yeah.
your why. Like, in terms of getting that degree versus going into industry, it really is important that you ask yourself why you're getting that degree. And if you're going to be happy you got it in 20 years, I don't know how many people are in here are thinking about applying to medical school, but there's a lot of pressure, obviously, to stand out. And I took a gap year to retake the MCAT. And also because I was like, oh, I should probably get a master's because that's the most important thing in the world. And I'm going to impress every medical school. And I dropped out of a master's route in neuroscience at MCB, phenomenal program, because I was like, I'm doing this for the completely wrong reason. And instead, I went with my friends and we started a nonprofit in Southeast Asia and spent time in like Vietnam and Cambodia, and I stopped caring. And that wound up being a much better story for my applications and for my life in general. And I look back on it now and I'm like, I can't fathom how I'd feel if I just never had that opportunity. And instead I went and got this master's just so I could get another degree. I think your authenticity and your story actually will matter more.
Yeah. The only thing I'll add is if you have an idea of where you're generally heading or where you think you may want to head, just kind of see what maybe the industry standard or requirements may be. Because I will say, like, I practice on the life sciences side in patent law because it kind of breaks down into what your technical specialty is. But on the life sciences side, our clients have just kind of come to demand that the people representing them have a PhD. So if I didn't get that, it was a deal breaker. So like early on in the process, when I realized I need to do something else other than academia, the PhD had that value. Like I had to do it, and I still enjoyed it. Like I love the science, but keep that in mind before, like, that might kind of guide you on what your next step is.
Thank you all.
Thanks. I see a
think there-
question in our chat. Oh, I'm sorry, Jesus, were you done? Did you have another question?
I was just saying thank you for the words.
Thanks, appreciate it. So in our chat, we also have another question from Jasmine, which says, I was wondering when or what the pivotal moment was when you realized the traditional route was not for you. And I know some of you have touched on that, but I thought I would throw it back out there since it's on our thread here.
Who wants to take this one first?
I can start and I'll be quick with it. Jasmine, I'll give you two. One will be when I was probably in your shoes in undergrad, and the other one will be like later when my career just went in a different direction. So Dr. Thomas Lindell used to teach a bioethics class. I am still close with this gentleman. He's a phenom. And I went to him when I was a junior. And I was like, he used to be on U of A medicine's admission committee. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get in close with this professor and he's going to write me a letter and I'm going to get in. And I went with him and I talked to him about going into medicine. And he's like, cool, why do you want to go into medicine? And I gave him all the typical reasons you can expect. Like, I want to help people and I like science and I want to see people get better and all this stuff. And he looked at me and he's like, you do know that is not your everyday reality of medicine. And there's a lot of suffering involved. And so what you should do is go learn about grievance and suffering and then come back and talk to me. And I was like, whoa, like, am I going to be a vampire slayer? And so I went and that led me to going working as a grievance counselor with Tunadito, which I then did for 9 years after that conversation. And it was that point when I kind of was introduced into the whole concept of interpersonal communication. That was pivotal point number one, because I no longer felt like I was in the typical path. And then later on in my career, my plan was I'm going to go into fellowship after residency, after medical school. I'm going to research. And the side of me that always loved acting and performing then started to merge with the need for science communication. So it's kind of like staying open-minded. And it was in that moment when I was like, I would be extremely unhappy if I did not take this chance, because I don't think the world is going to be really sad if there's not another pediatric cardiologist, but I think it would be dishonest to myself if I didn't take a shot and try to build something out of this moment. And it was like that kind of inflection point, Jasmine, where I was like, okay, things are going to go off the hinges.
I love your story, Alok, so much. I just feel like I am in like maybe just like 10 years behind you, where you were like 10 years ago is where I am right now.
You're there, you're there.
Yeah, I'm in it. I'm in that journey right now. So like, did I ever think like when I went into industry, I thought I'm for sure going to join like the research track. I'm going to become a scientist. End of story. Like that is like the goal. Like that is what I was really searching for. And then I just got thrown into this engineering department, like didn't know what was going on. And I was just like, it was kind of crazy. How did I get to that point was when I was like, I don't know, I guess I was really lucky in my early years of undergrad, and I just had this beautiful picture painted for me. I was in a well-supported lab. I had great peers, great mentors. And then when all of that gets, kind of taken away and you're really self-reliant and realizing that like, okay, this is like brass tacks, this is really hard. And I don't think I can do this alone. I really want to be part of a group community that can support me through whatever pieces that whatever journey it is. It doesn't matter what project it is to me. That was what I was looking for. What I really look for is like that community within the work culture that I have. So like when I joined Roche, it was really nice because I had that community. And I played the rookie card also, where I was like, I don't know anything. Everyone teach me everything you got. I'm here to learn. And then now I find myself like moving into the position of the culture creator. And it's very different place to be, I guess. And I love like trying to do my best to create that culture too. And that's when I kind of figured out that the traditional route wasn't for me, was when I joined a lab where the culture wasn't there that I'm looking for. So maybe it's just, and then when I went into grad school, I was very intentional in looking for labs that supported the culture that I was looking for. And that's a different definition for everyone. I would say like some are very rigorous, very structured, and that is amazing for the people that thrive in that environment, but that was just not for me. I really needed a more of like a dialogue, more consistent dialogue. So that's how I learned.
Yeah, my story may be less inspirational, but maybe worth sharing anyways. But is that my first year in graduate school, I was enjoying it, but that first summer after the first year, I had some downtime where I hadn't really been given a lot of responsibility yet, and was, then my mind, of course, wanders on to things, and I started looking at various people, older people who were in academia, like my advisor or other people who were working there, and I just was kind of going down the line. I was like, I don't want to be you. I don't want to be you. And like, I don't want to be doing what they're doing. So clearly I needed to look around, and that was kind of the spark that then led me on a search, and now here I am today. But yeah, maybe mine was a little different of, I don't want to be that, but I know I want to be something. And then the journey began.
Great, thank you. I think we'll do another 10-second call out for questions. Students, what questions do you have? Raise your hand.
Jackie has a question. Do
Jackie.
we miss U of A? Yes, every day.
Yeah, I was actually gonna ask like because you all seem really like positive about like being open-minded and stuff, but like what would you recommend like if you're feeling down or you're feeling like demotivated, or like maybe you did realize like, okay, this isn't for me, like how do you keep up that motivation to keep moving on and to keep pushing forward and to continue having like a positive open mind?
Hit the feels. Sorry. Now, since I did that and my speaker turned on, I'll answer your question and let the others. I'm just going to flat out say this, but I am a huge believer that everyone at some point should try some form of therapy, whether it is talking to someone at school, talking to a guidance counselor, learning how to journal, and even working on things like meditating, just to center yourself. Flat out, I will say that. With respect to those hurdles, you're going to go through them. I always go through them. I hit low points in undergrad for social reasons, for a breakup, for a disaster I had during verbal on the MCAT in fall 2005. I swear to God. Anyway, it was actually spring 06, my bad. But it's important to find those trusted mentors and talk to them about it, and then stop talking. Like, we don't have all the answers, but your mentors, people who have been there, can share things from their past and just soak it in. I can give you 1,000 examples. I'll give you one. Jennifer, what is Bruce's last name, who's a genetics professor? He used to teach with Ted Walsh.
Patterson?
Bruce Patterson, the genetics professor, yeah. So I remember I was like struggling with a few things, and he would tell me that when he was getting his PhD in population genetics, he would stop working and stop trying to figure things out and go on a bike ride and just think. And he's like, and this was way before it was like, you know, hashtag mindfulness with like make ba make on Instagram Reels. This is back in the day. And he was like, I would just ride my bike and I would stare and like the answers would come to me. And I always remember that. And even to this day, when I can't get myself to think about something or I'm feeling down, like I will stop working completely and I'll go and like take a walk or run and like clarity shows up. I hope people got my reference to that Instagram reel, which is driving me insane. 'Cause
I got you. I'm also old, so just kidding. Just kidding.
I'll echo everything. Yeah. Sometimes you got to step back. And I think maybe some of that is having balance. Like, you know, we're all clearly highly motivated and into science or whatever avenue of science. Like, but having other hobbies is great too, even if it's, you know, something that's private to you for your other hobby, or like, yeah, just be able to step back, and life is usually bigger than that one little problem. And maybe
Yeah,
something.
and
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
oh no, go ahead. I was just gonna echo what Alex said. I mean, I think like even day to day for me, like the high startup life can be crazy. It's like the highs are crazy high, and then the lows are intensely low. So like I had realized like I think one of my biggest values is community. So I like regularly check in with my mentors. I regularly check in with my mentee. I also reach out to friends and family whenever I like am really feeling rough. To Alex's point, like therapy is an incredible resource that definitely needs to be leveraged more than it is now. I always, when I'm talking to my mentee, like, please, like I can only take you so far, but I'm not a trained professional in that particular sense. But I don't know, having that community was really helpful. And it just, I think it goes to like that level of ambition that you kind of need a little bit, where I just cold called someone that I really admired and was like, hey, I really would like for you to be my mentor. I'm going through these like things, and I think your experiences really would be valuable. And it was like, you know, three layers of separation, but I just really needed this input. And people are way more accepting than you give them credit for. Like everyone is here to help. So I think also like being willing to put yourself in that vulnerable situation really helps build relationships. And then you can have that as you go through your journey. And to Alok and John's point, it happens. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen all the time. And you can't bet on that going away.
And Jackie, I think this is easier said than done, but do your best to not get lost in that sea of comparing yourself to others. We used to do it all the time, and that was before social media. I can't even imagine what people nowadays are going through when you guys are going online and you're looking at everyone's manicured versions of their lives, where they're not posting their stresses that they're dealing with. When I was pre-med, there was a website called studentdoctor.gov or .net, studentdoc.net, whatever it was called. People would go on there and be like, what are my chances of getting into med school? I have a 3.9. I got a 41 on the MCAT. I have 3 PhDs from Harvard. Am I good? And it's like, it's not productive. It pushes you down this downward spiral because they're not giving you the entire picture. It's like, focus on you. Also, I have to run in like 2 minutes, just so everyone knows. But like, if I randomly disappear, please feel free to contact me in addition to the other two. And if you're in the Bay Area, we're watching a U of A game and drinks are on us if you're over 21.
That's an offer you can't refuse right there. All right, I'll take a 10-second break for another question then along those lines, students. Okay, Sophia.
Hi, I was wondering if you guys had any advice for how to go about exploring or identifying alternate career paths.
Can I say something real quick and then I have to step away? Sorry, guys, I have a work conflict and a toddler thing, and it's a long story.
Feel free.
Sophia, I think Gloria touched on this earlier, but cold emailing people in the industry simply to learn, not even with an agenda, just to say like, hey, like this person is in this job, whether they are working for Netflix or Fitbit, it doesn't even matter. Or if they're a surgeon, a nurse, anything, and just asking and saying like, I want to learn. I've had undergraduates reach out to me from random universities across the world and simply saying like, I would love to learn about how you did this. or can you come and speak on this panel? Like no one, I don't even know these people, but I think talking to people and just learning about what they went through, exactly what you're doing right now, is a really, really great first step, which is also why I was saying earlier to, just to go and explore on blogs and on social media and read people's stories. I think you guys are fortunate in that there's a much more welcoming culture from science communicators and people who want to help the next generation, aside from the fact that we want to give back, but like time is of the essence. And like, we really, really need to motivate the next generation of scientists. I got to run. You guys are amazing. Bear down forever.
Thank you, Alok. Appreciate it very much.
Let me know when the next U of A game watch is happening.
I was going to say, hold on, I'm throwing stuff in this chat so you guys can all email me. There, holler.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it for sure. Good luck with everything.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been on both sides, and I answer pretty much. I will not answer things like, we think you're a great candidate for our MBA program. I will never answer those like in a million years, or if someone's contacted me to offer their services, I won't answer that. But every time I get someone who's just asking like, hey, I just want to meet for like 30 minutes, get your opinion, like I'm interested in these things, I always answer those. So like, again, just cold call is the best way sometimes. And then you don't even have, sometimes you just need to what Alok was saying, having different hobbies is always helpful, just because you're kind of connecting on a different level, and then you come to the realization that you work in the same industry. It's very common that happens. Tucson's really small, which is a really good thing. It's actually in your advantage to leverage that. I'm part of the climbing community, or I was part of the climbing community down there for a while, and then now there's like a ton of engineers, a ton of scientists that go there, go to the meetups, go to all the things. Like join a cycling thing. It doesn't have to be that like crazy necessarily, but even sometimes like I'll just go into a coffee shop and I'm talking about like what coffee to buy, and then someone like jumps in and then we start a conversation. I find out that they're like an engineer or some. I definitely had like a drink with some VP of a person in a completely different industry before, just like spend like a whole day just chatting about our lives, and then we end up connecting and expanding your network that way. So it's just like these little interactions, these tiny micro interactions that really add up to the bigger picture. If you're looking for a more traditional route to finding out these things, the internet is your best friend, I think. I will typically like, and you can even use ChatGPT for this, like what type of jobs are there in industry? There's so many. So I can just give you a quick list, like there's regulatory affairs, you can go into manufacturing ops, like you'd be surprised how many people are needed in that area. R&D is a very popular one. So research and development is like the coveted job, I would say, for most biologists. You're like, that's where you're getting to do like creative science, I would say. We have like systems engineers, that's my background specifically. Computer science is becoming increasingly more relevant in the biology space. I would highly recommend, if you choose that route, to consider data analytics as well. Like you can definitely take that route, the lawyer route, of course, the MD route. Even you can, like with the MD, you can take the role of like a chief medical officer, or like a professional, like corporate doctor is an actual job that you can have. So like, once you take your first step into corporate or meet someone, like we can do that. We can like connect you with any of these people, or we definitely should have connections to people that are in these various industry or various facets of the industry. You can also go like the clinical route. You can go the corporate laboratory route as well. Histopathology, there's tons. Like just think about the subject that you're most interested in, do a quick Google search, do a little more deep diving in that way, find someone on LinkedIn, say like, this is the job I'm looking for. It'll definitely pull up people that have this job, interview them, and then just do that process as many times as it takes.
Yeah, and if at all helpful, something I found useful when I was in your position was trying to make the cold call a little less cold, in the sense that, I did my homework. If somebody I had targeted as a person I wanted to talk to, and I saw maybe they had, published a blog post or an article or something, like go read it and then use that to make the connection. Be like, I just saw your blah, 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 would love, to chat with you. And I'm also interested in that career path. And I felt like it got a good response. And now that I'm in my situation now, like when people do homework before they come, done deal. Like whereas some people come in very clueless, it's not terribly productive for either person, but like show you're willing to do the legwork, and that felt like that opened a lot of doors as well.
I will take hopefully this is like a perfect segue that 2 weeks from now, the next workshop that we're having as a group is going to be on professional networking and LinkedIn. And so for all of you who are like, oh, how do I start down this road? Then we're actually going to help you with it, students. So, keep that in mind. There is actually a UBRP group on LinkedIn. And so you can join that. And so another kind of less cold way of contacting people also is if you take a look at the UBRP LinkedIn group and then reach out to those people and just say, hey, I'm in UBRP like you were, and start with that. But I totally agree. As far as doing homework, it's always wise to do your homework and see what's going on, because you'll be more liable, as John says, to get deeper in with someone if they know that you've already looked into what they're about and what the information is. So that's always a good move.
And as to Gloria's point, the climbing community is still very scientist heavy in Tucson.
Super.
And if anybody wants to go climbing, just shoot me an email or let me know.
There's like
if you wanna get
so
involved.
many scientists from Roche there. I can name 5 off the top of my head that I've worked with personally, a bunch of others. Like people have worked in marketing that I know from Roche. So please leverage all of the communities that you have. You just be surprised.
That is very true. I've had scientists on like soccer pickup games and all kinds of things. So
oh my
like,
gosh, the Roche
find them.
soccer team is a force to be reckoned with. I played once with them and I was like, never again. You guys are too much. I can't.
Yeah, I'm recreational, so I'm like, I can't go down that road.
Yeah. I played like intramural indoor. That was like my first time playing soccer. And then they were like, you should come back. And I was like, no, I don't enjoy getting kicked in the shins on a Saturday for 2 hours. No thanks. Or even the ultimate frisbee groups. They're full of engineer Raytheon Roche people too.
Mm-hmm. Very true. All right, more questions from students. Putting the line out there. Alyssa.
Hello. I think it would be cool to hear about both of your experiences in UBRP and how you think those helped you at the beginning of your career and now even.
I loved UBRP. There's nothing else I can say about that.
Do you want to take this one first then?
Sure. So I backdoored my way into UBRP. I was begging UBRP to take me, I think is what happened. And I was really lucky. Like I said, my first couple of years were lucky. I started in Keys, so I already had a connection there with a lab that did UBRP. And then so I just continued from my Keys program into undergrad. And that was just a very natural transition for me. I participated I was very heavily academically involved. It was everything to me in undergrad. And that's why I feel like I didn't miss anything there. Because of UBRP, I went on to multiple conferences, did the Beaker conference, if that's still around. I think that I highly recommend being part of that because there are, or used to be, travel grants through that particular route. It opened a lot of doors to mentorship and then mentoring. A lot of it's hilarious because one of the girls from our 6th grade journal club I'm still connected with now, even to this day. She's old now, and that hurts me a lot. I was really involved, and that really helped me really form that community that I was looking for. Going to nationals is really beautiful just because I got to really understand how I fit into that academic world should I choose to continue down that path. And that's not to say that if you're in industry, you won't go to conferences, you 100% will. So if you find that little niche group, and then, yeah, I don't know, from there, I got to connect with a lot of grad students. So I got to see what they were doing throughout my undergrad career, which really helped shape my path actually a lot. A lot of the people that did get their PhDs, I ended up being colleagues with afterwards, which was pretty cool at Roche. So that was really nice. But I think, and then the connections that I had in UBRP I still am in contact with to this day. So like Porva, if you remember, Porva was from my group. She used to work at my company as well before I did, and I got my job through her network. So it's really, so like the people that are sitting in this room that are sitting next to you today, they become lifelong friendships, really is what it is. And it's pretty crazy how like our paths have changed so much. And some of us really went down the MD path, some of us went PhD, and some of us just like jumped straight into industry. And we're still all like, I wouldn't say like it gives you a leg up in one way or the other. It's just a different outcome. And that's pretty cool to hear. And now when I think about like, what are my next steps, I'm like very entrepreneurial in that mindset, but I was like, okay, I know someone in manufacturing, I know someone who knows regulatory, this person's in medical, has their MD, so I could pull them for advice if I need it. This person has their PhD in this area that I'm really interested in. So maybe like in the future, we could like pull a team together and do our own like startup or something like that. It's just cool ideas will happen that way. So make a lot of friends, enjoy UBRP, it's so great.
That was very well covered. Similar experience. I feel like the only thing I can really add is I felt like just the experience in the program and just seeing things before I think a lot of your other peers have a chance to, like, just matures you so much more. So like when I went to apply for graduate school, like I knew what graduate students were thinking, I knew what advisors wanted to hear, and you kind of have that jump start. So it's the experience is just so valuable. Just start, yeah, I think it's maybe how life goes. You just start collecting experiences and this being a huge one early on. So
Thanks. I should mention too, to Gloria's point, that we do have, UBRP still has travel awards. And so if you're interested in going to, a meeting to present your work and you submit your abstract and it's accepted, then definitely I encourage you to apply for a UBRP travel award. And if you go onto our website under current students, you'll find all the information for that. So yeah. we like to help students be able to be involved in those things. And I know it's not always cheap. So
yeah. And then I don't know if everyone here is in the Honors College. The Honors College has many grants, and then like a bunch, like 200 here or there adds up very quickly. So I would, like, my experience, I was like dirt poor, and my entire like conference traveling was fully funded because I took the effort to apply for scholarships, and it was really amazing, and a lot of memories are made there. And I think another benefit is you also get to network with other undergrads as well, who are also in the same shoes, maybe a different industry, but you kind of learn how small the world really is from those experiences.
Very true. Definitely like the hub of networking, and you find that out quickly. So good. I will also ask for another 10-second fish for student questions while we're at. I have a question in mind, but I want to see if anyone else has one before I ask mine. Like speak now or forever hold your peace, right? Any last questions from students? Oh, yes, Hannah. Let me see if I can.
Okay, sorry, I need to figure out how to unmute myself. So when you like initially joined like your respective fields, like did you find yourself surrounded by other people who were sort of in the same like kind of like age and like position that you were, like fresh out of like XYZ? Like did you find yourself like eventually like working with like similar people, like as in your position, or even like interviewing with like the same type of people, that kind of thing? I don't know if that makes sense.
That's a great question. I was the baby, so they always made fun of me. Like I was just the baby, but I did have people that were like within my age range. We at Roche, we like kind of grassroots started a young Roche young professionals group. So again, like it just goes to say like keep networking, you'll find it. I think Roche has now like made it a lot easier to network with people in your cohort. Just keep in mind that we're all competing for the same roles though. So it's nice because you have competition, but it really pushes you to learn as much as you can and be very nosy on people's projects. A lot of the people that I worked with, we ended up taking different paths, but there were times where we were interviewing for the same positions, which was really nice because you can still do those skills, like practice your interviewing skills. I can't stress that enough. Like just keep interviewing. It's really good. The questions are fairly similar across the board. I also did mock interviews with people who were actually doing the interviewing as well. So leveraging that connection is really important in my opinion. Yeah, and you will no doubtedly run into people that you went to school with for sure. And I don't know if I answered your question or not, but like my situation was kind of weird because I was like not employed as part of the normal route. I was kind of this one-off thing, but I did sneak my way back into that group as well. So if you want it, you'll find it.
Yeah, I think maybe my experience is a little different. I was looking for a job at 2013, like right after the 2008 financial crisis where law firms just stopped hiring. So like no business, no hiring. And so I think I was one of the first hires back into the group for a long time. So like maybe I was thrown into the deep end because there wasn't that peer set of like more recent hires because there'd just been a hiring freeze essentially. But it had a lot of benefits as well. So I guess if whatever opportunity presents itself to you, just kind of have to rise up. Like I was working with partners who had been there for 20 years and I had zero experience, and just be willing to learn, be willing to adapt and rise up. And you know, at this point, it's a very different situation. We've hired a ton more people, and I think like what you're getting at, Hannah, with a lot more of your peers in a similar environment. But I will say the one thing to look out for is like find a place where you're gonna thrive. And I feel like Gloria has been touching on this a lot. Like I love a team environment. I want to be in a collaborative environment. And even though there was that huge experience and age gap, like it was still a team at the end of the day. It was a non-issue. I didn't even really think about it until you asked the question, actually. So it was just a total non-issue.
I mostly got made fun of for being a baby. Like
yeah, me too.
I think I still am. Like I am still like the youngest in a lot of my like age range, and I was like, oh, will this ever end? I don't know. But now I have to be an adult, so that's kind of weird.
I always think there's kind of pros and cons to that as well. Like if you're young and fresher out of school, then there is some experience that you bring with you from that in terms of just learning the latest and greatest. And then of course, if you're on the other end of the spectrum, then you know you may not be fresh out of school, but then by then usually you have a lot of experience in a lot of areas. And so kind of depending on any job that you go to, I think you bring a combination of those things. So being everyone starts out somewhere. So yeah. You know, people know that it's unless you're going into a field where specifically you have to have like whatever tons of years of training before you enter it, then it kind of anything goes, I feel like.
Yeah, I think one of my mentors gave me like really good advice that I still kind of follow to this day is don't be too scared of the requirements and go ahead and apply anyways. Because if you don't shoot your shot, so like I'll typically apply for it's stupid. I think it's like crazy, but I'll apply for like positions that are 2 or 3 levels higher than I think I'm good at, and then you just never know. And then to John's point, like I think every change in position that I've had to rise to the occasion. I've had to learn, like really hustle. And then once I got comfortable, that was my signal to leave, is how I felt about it. I just crave that sort of thing. And then I don't know, just have more faith in yourself than you think you have, and you'll go far.
I think that is great advice. And since we're getting close to the end of our hour, I'll invite you to, John, do you have any final advice that you'd like to share with students?
I mean, nothing like groundbreaking, but just one point that really resonated with what you were saying, Jennifer, is like kind of know your edge. Because even if you're going for like an informational or just trying to figure out what to do next, like you really got to market yourself. And the funny thing is, like I'll turn it to the today for me. Like when we go hire somebody new, like I know they don't know anything about patent law, like, and I don't care, but they've been like closer to the science than I have. Like they're in a lab now, whereas I haven't been in a lab for a decade, and that's their edge, and that's what we rely on them at the beginning. So do think about And I think Jennifer, you were capturing it perfectly. Like think about what your edge is and try to highlight that like through UBRP, you know, you're in the lab now and maybe that's how you can market yourself.
Thank you. That is well said and good advice, I think, for sure. So thank you both. I really appreciate you both coming. Before you go, if you have a chance and you're willing to, I would say, Gloria and John, if you have contact information that you would like to share, go ahead and plop that in the chat. And then that way, students, if you want to reach out to any of our panelists individually about any other questions, or just, again, to contact and say, hey, what about this? What about that? What's life like here and there? That would be a wonderful thing to do. So thank you so much for doing that. I appreciate it. And I don't want to keep you beyond your time. And I think we're right at it. We're a little bit over it even. So Gloria and John, thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks for thinking of us. I love U
Yeah,
of A, so always like I'm excited about the day now. I get to have my little touch of U of A. I miss that place so much.
Oh, and we'll come. Maybe we might hunt you down later too. Be like,
Yeah,
hey,
all the time. Hit me up. Do like an
do.
in-person thing where I have to come to Tucson and twist my arm.
Yeah, pay us a visit. We would love it. We would
Yeah.
love it. It was good to see you both. Thank you.
All
And then
right.
students, same thing, like take a note in the chat. If you want to reach out to anyone, then feel free to go ahead and do that. And we will be back in person next week, students, back in Chance 247, as I mentioned, with professional networking and LinkedIn 2 weeks from now. So if you have
Yeah, see, I don't know, Jen, I think you have my LinkedIn as well. So if you want to share that as well, I can't like find it right now for some reason because
okay,
logins and stuff. But if you want to share that, that's totally cool as well.
Okay, I will. I can have that down too. I'll make a little note for that as well and send it out.
Awesome.
Okay, well, thank you all. Glad to see
It was
you.
great seeing you, Jen. I haven't
that.
seen you in forever, so it was really nice hearing from you.
I know. Thank you so much for making time to come. I really do appreciate it. It's awesome. So thank you guys all for being here. Students, we will see you in 2 weeks. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. And I don't know, maybe we'll get some rain. We'll see. We'll see how it goes out monsoon season here.
Good luck, everyone. Good luck on your journey.
Good luck.
Thank you.